In this video, we'll uncover the chilling stories of some of Virginia's most notorious executions. From killers who shook the nation to one of the most controversial wrongful conviction debates in U.S. history, we'll explore their crimes, their last meals, and their haunting last words. These cases reveal just how complex and controversial the death penalty has been in Virginia's history. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Stay connected for more true crime stories, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a new video. William Morva. William Charles Morva's case stands out in Virginia's death penalty history because of both the brutality of his crimes and the international controversy over his mental health. In August 2006, Morva was jailed in Montgomery County, Virginia, awaiting trial for attempted robbery charges. He was taken to a local hospital after complaining of an injury. While under guard, Morva attacked a sheriff's deputy, managed to take his firearm, and fatally shot hospital security guard Derek McFarland during his escape. The next morning, as officers scoured the woods looking for him, Morva lay in wait and ambushed Sheriff's Corporal Eric Sutphin, shooting him in the head. Sutphin, a well-known officer and father of two, was killed instantly. Morva was captured later that day and convicted of capital murder. As his execution date approached, his lawyers and mental health advocates argued that Morva suffered from a severe psychiatric condition known as delusional disorder. The United Nations even appealed to the governor to halt the execution, citing concerns that executing someone with a serious mental illness violated international human rights law. But Governor Terry McAuliffe denied clemency, saying the evidence of his crimes was overwhelming. On July 6, 2017, Morva entered the execution chamber at the Greensville Correctional Center in Girard, Virginia. Unlike many others before him, his last meal was never publicly disclosed, adding an air of mystery to his final hours. When given the chance to speak his last words, William Morva said, "I am sorry. I know that I have disappointed everybody and hurt a lot of people. I am sorry." He went on to express that he had been struggling for years and hinted that he felt misunderstood and mistreated by the justice system. His words reflected remorse, but also confusion, consistent with the psychiatric issues his defense team had long described. At 9:15 p.m., William Morva was pronounced dead by lethal injection. He became the last person executed in Virginia before the state abolished the death penalty in 2021. His case continues to divide opinions. For the victims' families, it was the end of a long chapter of grief in pursuit of justice. For critics, it remains a troubling example of how mental illness and capital punishment collide in the U.S. justice system. Teresa Lewis. The case of Teresa Wilson Bean Lewis shocked the nation, not only because of the brutal crime she orchestrated, but also because she would become the first woman executed in Virginia in nearly a century. In October 2002, Teresa Lewis conspired with two younger men, her lover Matthew Schallenberger and his friend Rodney Fuller, to kill her husband, Julian Lewis, and her stepson, Charles Lewis Jr., for a $250,000 life insurance payout. Lewis had offered money, sexual favors, and the promise of sharing the insurance proceeds to persuade the men to carry out the murders. On the night of the crime, she left the back door of her home unlocked to let the gunmen in. As Julian and Charles slept, Schallenberger and Fuller entered and shot them multiple times. Investigators later discovered that Teresa not only helped plan the murders, but also stood by while her husband and stepson died. During her trial, prosecutors described her as the mastermind of the crime, while her defense argued she had limited intelligence and was manipulated by the men. Psychological tests showed she had a low IQ, raising questions about whether she truly had the mental capacity to be the driving force behind the murders. Still, the jury convicted her and sentenced her to death. Her co-conspirators received life sentences, a fact that fueled controversy about whether Teresa's punishment was disproportionately harsh. Appeals for clemency came from across the world, including from novelist John Grisham, and even Iran's President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad publicly condemned her execution as evidence of American hypocrisy. But Virginia officials pressed forward. On September 23, 2010, Teresa Lewis faced her final hours at the Greensville Correctional Center in Girard, Virginia. For her last meal, she requested a simple comfort food spread: fried chicken, buttered peas, and a Dr. Pepper. When asked for her final words, Teresa expressed deep remorse. She said, "I just want Kathy to know that I love you, and I am very sorry." Kathy was the daughter of her husband Julian, who had lost both her father and brother in the murders. Teresa also apologized to the rest of the victims' families, telling them she regretted the pain she had caused. At 9:13 p.m., Teresa Lewis was pronounced dead by lethal injection. Her execution drew national and international attention, sparking debates about gender, mental capacity, and fairness in the death penalty system. Today, she remains a haunting reminder of how greed, manipulation, and desperation can lead to devastating consequences, and how the justice system continues to wrestle with questions of mercy versus punishment. John Allen Muhammad. Few crime sprees in American history caused as much fear and disruption as the D.C. sniper attacks of 2002. At the center of this reign of terror was John Allen Muhammad, a former U.S. Army marksman, and his teenage accomplice, Lee Boyd Malvo. Over the course of 3 weeks in October 2002, Muhammad and Malvo carried out a series of coordinated shootings across Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. The pair modified a Chevrolet Caprice into a mobile sniper's nest, firing through a hole cut near the trunk. They killed 10 people and critically injured 3 others, often targeting random victims as they pumped gas, shopped, or walked outside. The randomness of the shootings created widespread panic. People across the region avoided gas stations, kept their children home from school, and constantly looked over their shoulders. Authorities called it one of the most calculated and cold-blooded crime waves in U.S. history. Muhammad's motives were complicated. Prosecutors argued he was trying to extort money by terrorizing the area and, at the same time, using Malvo in a plan to ultimately kill his ex-wife and regain custody of his children. In 2003, Muhammad was convicted of capital murder in Virginia and sentenced to death, while Malvo, who was just 17 at the time of the shootings, received multiple life sentences. On November 10, 2009, John Allen Muhammad was led to the death chamber at Greensville Correctional Center in Girard, Virginia. In contrast to many others on death row, he refused a special last meal, choosing instead to eat the standard prison fare served that evening. When asked for his final statement, Muhammad remained silent. Witnesses described him as calm and expressionless as he was strapped to the gurney. He offered no apology, no explanation, and no words for the families of the victims who sat watching from behind the glass. At 9:11 p.m., John Allen Muhammad was executed by lethal injection, pronounced dead without uttering a single word. For many, his silence was as chilling as the crimes he committed. His execution closed one of the darkest chapters in Virginia's criminal history. But the memory of the sniper attack still lingers in the region, a reminder of how quickly fear can grip a community when violence is unpredictable and seemingly senseless. Roger Keith Coleman. The execution of Roger Keith Coleman remains one of the most talked about and controversial cases in Virginia's history, raising questions about guilt, innocence, and the ultimate finality of the death penalty. In 1981, Coleman's 19-year-old sister-in-law, Wanda McCoy, was brutally raped and murdered in Grundy, Virginia. McCoy was found in her home, stabbed multiple times, and evidence pointed investigators toward Coleman, who was then 22 years old and had a reputation for being troubled. Coleman was convicted of capital murder, with prosecutors painting him as a violent predator. From the beginning, Coleman maintained his innocence. His case drew worldwide attention because of persistent doubts about the fairness of his trial and the quality of evidence used against him. In the years leading up to his execution, Coleman became a symbol for anti-death penalty activists. His face appeared on the cover of Time magazine with the headline, "This man might be innocent. This man is due to die." Despite appeals and public campaigns, the courts upheld his conviction. His lawyers argued that key DNA evidence had not been adequately tested, but the legal system moved forward. On May 20, 1992, Coleman was escorted to Virginia's death chamber at the Greensville Correctional Center. His last meal request was never publicly recorded, leaving historians and true crime followers to speculate about how he spent his final hours. When given the chance to speak, Coleman used his last words to continue proclaiming his innocence. "An innocent man is going to be murdered tonight. When my innocence is proven, I hope America will realize the injustice of the death penalty." He was strapped into Virginia's infamous electric chair, and at 11:08 p.m., Roger Keith Coleman was pronounced dead. The controversy did not end there. For years after his death, activists and journalists pressed for further DNA testing to finally answer the question of Coleman's guilt. In 2006, Governor Mark Warner authorized advanced DNA testing on preserved evidence. The results confirmed what prosecutors had said all along: Roger Keith Coleman was guilty of the crime. The findings silenced the innocence debate, but his case remains one of the most symbolic in the history of capital punishment, a reminder of the high stakes when questions of doubt and justice collide. Virginia once had one of the nation's most active execution chambers. These stories of Morva, Lewis, Muhammad, and Coleman highlight the difficult moral questions surrounding capital punishment, from mental health to remorse and even claims of wrongful convictions. With the death penalty now abolished in Virginia, their stories stand as haunting reminders of a controversial past. If you found these stories fascinating, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more true crime content. Share your thoughts in the comments.